Welcome back to another episode of Beekeeping Buddies. I'm Steven.
And I'm Luke.
It's been sunny and 80, almost no rain, although it did have a little sprinkle today. It was 65 and sprinkly, but we had talked just yesterday about the chance of rain, and you were convinced it was going to rain, and I was not convinced it was rain, so I was surprised this morning.
Yeah, I wasn't too surprised. It wasn't very much. It was barely enough to
tenth.
It was enough to get the humidity up, although it was kind of cool and overcast.
For most of the day.
It was nice for the overcast portion of it.
And then I was out setting up the new shed that we bought from Sam's, and then the sun came out, and oh my word. it got warm moist.
Fast. Yeah. I was going to take the day off beekeeping because I've been beekeeping quite literally every day.
'Tis the season, sir.
Yeah, from 10 to 12 hours a day. It's been a lot.
You were supposed to take the day off yesterday, and you ended up being called out for beekeeping also.
There was a 92-year-old lady she might have been 94. She didn't really want to tell me her age. She was in her 90s, and she had a swarm that she swore had stung her a couple days ago. The swarm was still in the bushes, the little rose bush looking thing by the side of her house that she wanted me to cut down because she didn't want any more bees in there.
And for all of you new beginner listeners out there, that would be exceptionally rare.
It would be super rare.
A swarm to be upset enough to sting you.
Especially without leaving stingers behind, especially if you didn't see a honeybee.
Especially if they weren't painful.
If they're itchy.
They're itchy?
And they look like...
Was she out in the garden, sir?
She was out in the garden. But it is interesting to get the point of view from folks that don't know much about honeybees and say stuff like that to you. It's like, oh yeah, I was out in my garden and I came back inside and the next day I had all these itchy bites all over me. Obviously it was the honeybees.
They got all over me.
They got the swarm. Nope. The swarm scared me and yeah. So it wasn't too hard of a swarm to capture because it was below knee height, but it was all intertwined with this bush that I ended up cutting a bunch out of.
So that puts you on what for swarm captures?
I don't know.
Don't know, sir. You're supposed to be keeping track, so we can put it all. We can. I'm like brag to Randy, right?
I'm like
628 Dirt Rooster.
I'm like at 17 or 18.
Oh man, that's way more than my one.
I've caught
in my yard.
I've caught 3 on the. So we went to. We had Dr. David Peck in from Better Bee.
Yep.
He did that talk on swarm captures.
Yep.
And about putting it up 15 feet and having the box and baiting it. So I put one up 15 feet. I put 2 types up 15 feet because the deck that hangs off of Mom and Dad's towards the river, it's about 15 feet up in the air. That has caught 3 swarms in the past 3 weeks.
You have lots and lots and lots of hives.
I do.
About 100 feet away from that, which is perfect distance.
Perfect. Yeah. Now, there's a box as well. So I have the large, weird looking MIT swarm traps.
Yep.
And the normal 10 frame single deep box. I've caught 0 in the normal 10 frame single deep box. I've caught 3 in the deep.
So
in the large weird hive. So and they're both bathed the same. In fact, because I've run out of frames, the large box just has frames and foundation, wax foundation in it.
Yeah.
And the other one has a little bit of comb in it. This doesn't matter. They still like the MIT box.
So that's the one that's deeper than a deep. So there's an empty space below the deep of about 6 or 8 inches, and then somewhere between 5 and 6 frames wide.
Yeah,
I think I have one that's both 6 frames wide and one that's 5 frames wide.
Yeah, I think mine are all 5. I just caught another one today, not local, like a half hour away. Remember, was it last year or the year before? We had that call for the folks that had the place out by Wildlife Prairie Park, and they said they were getting bees in the house.
Yeah.
And you put up the swarm trap.
Yeah.
And
I thought you put hives out there.
I do. I have hives out there.
Okay.
But anyway, I had the same sort of call from somebody else.
Oh.
Out half hour away in the country.
Yeah.
And so I put one. I said, "Yeah, I can put one out there for you. I'm not going to do it for free because I've done it once before and went back to get it and it's gone."
Okay, well that's a thing too. Yeah.
Yep. Even though it has my name and phone number on there, so somebody out there has a nice swarm trap with a Harvey made stand that you can ratchet strap to the to the tree.
Yeah.
And bees in it probably, or they took the bees and moved them somewhere else. So he said that they kept showing interest in it, and I thought, okay. And he was insistent that their hive had moved in one day. So I went out there, drove out there, out of my way. Hive had not moved in, but there were a few scouts at it. And I told him, I said, maybe there's some scouts on here. If you're not getting bees in your house anymore, because oftentimes you can have a bee, they'll scout the area, they'll get lost in the house, and they're scouting, and they can't get out, and then people panic because there's bees in their house. In this situation, I put that up, the scouts stopped messing with the house, all went to the box, and today he was like, hey, 2/3 of that box is covered by bees.
Great.
Would you? Is this normal? And so it was not normal, in fact. And so I went out and.
I mean, it's normal when they're moving in.
Yeah. Well, they were actually not moving in. They were just hanging on the outside. It was really strange. I actually had to scoop them up into the box.
Yeah.
Before they decided, okay, we'll move in. I think that you have to be real careful with the amount of lemongrass oil you put on.
Yeah.
If you overdose the ball.
Yeah.
I always thought if some is good.
No.
Right.
I've always. My mentor suggested Q-tips because there's a limited surface area there. You can't overdose. Like if you're using cotton balls,
I'm using cotton balls.
Yeah, then you can overdose them and fumigate the box with lemongrass oil. Where Q-tips give you a limited amount of surface area for that.
Yeah,
and then if you wanted, you could throw your 2 Q-tips that have been dipped in your lemongrass oil in a like a plastic bag. And then cut a couple slits in your plastic baggie and throw that in there, and that will help maintain their scent a little longer because it doesn't evaporate off quite as quickly. But it'll still give them something to smell.
This one was cotton ball. Still had quite a bit of smell to it, and so I dumped them in. I should have taken a picture. I dumped them in, and there was they moved down into it, but they made a circle. Like a visible circle around the cotton ball.
Yeah.
So within a half inch around the cotton ball, there was nothing. So and once you moved it, they moved right in over it. So it was obviously this smells great, but this is a little too much perfume for the hive.
I was in my hive, so I've been working with one of the students, and as you noted. Did we talk about you taking honey last time we were on the podcast? I don't
know if we did or not.
I think that was maybe after we podcast that you took some really, really light honey.
Yeah, really pretty, probably black locust with some honeysuckle, around that time frame.
And so we had been through her hives that overwintered and my hives and the club hives, and there's quite a bit of nectar there that's being capped. So there's an opportunity to take honey. And so I was down on my hives, putting on some supers and checking on them. And I think I was at 5 of 7 hives appeared to be queenless with queen cells. So could you say I have failed as a beekeeper in my yard in terms of not ensuring the hive swarmed, and I knew one swarmed because I had caught it, saw it in the yard, and then caught it. I think probably all but one of the hives in the yard has probably swarmed. Now that means I got all new queens for 2026. I'm going to have to keep an eye on, make sure everybody requeens. I did pull some queen cells from a cutout that we did to try to ensure that I have an extra queen laying around if somebody comes up queenless in another couple weeks. So I'm sort of hedging my bets that way. I don't really need more hives at this point. I'm maxed out at what I want to work in terms of a hobby.
We've talked about that level before, about the hobby level versus Sideliner level.
For somebody who has a working farm, a hobby farm, and wants to run garden and still has a full-time job, like I don't want to have to dedicate like 4 hours every Saturday of standing out in the sun and the heat to work hives for 4 hours. Like it's just not.
And you have to sell that. You have to move that honey as well. And it seems like it should be super easy, and it kind of is once you build connections. but it takes a while to build the connections to move the significant.
The
amount
wife
of honey.
claims she could sell all the honey because for a long time we'd pull about 100 to 150 pounds a year, and about this time of year we'd sell out, or about March we'd sell out, and she'd still have people asking her for honey, and she's like, hey, if you were more active with the hives and we had a couple more hives and I could sell as much honey as you could take. Well, last year I think we took like 400 pounds, and honestly I think I still have like 200 pounds in the kitchen. We talked about that in terms of we've been pulling in. Yesterday's egg collection from the barn was 36 eggs, 32 eggs, and the day before that was 18.
The day before that, not 32 eggs in a week, 32 eggs.
So that was yesterday, 32 eggs. The day before that was 18. So together we were at like 48 to 50 eggs. So I'm making like at least 2 dozen a day.
Yeah, I should
averaging
some.
2 dozen. I did bring some.
Oh, you did?
They're in the car for you.
Oh, good.
So I'm like, hey, like having some chickens and having some extras to sell a few extra dozen eggs, for here and there so that you can offset the cost of just having some chickens on the farm. That's one thing. But when we're regularly at like 2 dozen a day and we've got eggs sitting in buckets covering the table, I'm like, there's a point where I don't need to make this a full-time job. Let's ease up on this. I'm at 8 hives on the property plus another 2 or 3 out at Wildlife Prairie, plus a 4 for the club, and and they're all making honey for the club, so I'm going to get a portion of that as apiary manager. So.
I mean, you could always retire and have the Steve homesteading channel, and
I could. There is a YouTube channel out there that I've had since before YouTube was Google. And there's some other opportunities brewing, and
I've watched a few. I watched one where it was a family, and the family's grown since then, and he wanted to be a beekeeper, and man, that guy had no idea how to be a beekeeper. And there's videos of him getting the snot stung out of him, and as soon as he started doing the stuff he was doing, I went, "You're gonna get lit up."
Just lit up.
and it was 2 minutes later in the video.
Do we need to call him out go to watch him to see what not to do?
No, we're not going to call him out. They're nice enough people.
So the report from my yard this week is I got a bunch of queen cells that probably have hatched into queens, and who knows if they're going to get mated. We'll check in and at the next podcast and see how they're doing. I am going to be taking honey with one of my students on Wednesday, so we'll see how that goes and how much we got left. You were thinking in a previous discussion we had that perhaps that real strong early spring flow we have might have tapered off.
I think it has. I've been watching mine. So I took honey, man, I want to say it was 2 weeks ago.
I think it was more than 2 weeks ago.
I think it was 3 weeks ago. It might have been 4. It was early. It was the earliest I've taken honey. And I think we pulled about 400 pounds.
Did you make was it that much?
Yeah.
It wound up being that much, huh?
Yeah. So 400. Now, I have some up in Galesburg.
Yeah.
That's off of an alfalfa field that just got harvested. The alfalfa field just did, and it had just gone to flower, and that one's ready to be reharvested. So I put those back on wet, and those are ready to be reharvested. And I have a few others.
Mostly capped, or as
these are mostly capped already. The lack of rain and the relatively lower humidity that we've had is really helpful with them capping early. Now, I have problematic hives in other areas, but it was a pretty good early harvest for me, and I just went back in, and they're barely filled in my main apiary. They've started to pull in darker honey to start with, and they've barely started pulling stuff in.
How much Dutch white clover you got blooming?
Everywhere.
I got some in the yard, so I think we're moved into the white clover phase.
Yeah,
which is usually the strong second flow. Like if you're around for spring flow, if you had a new package or a new nuke for the spring, usually it's the Dutch clover that you're going to catch if you're going to be able to make a honey crop the first year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then once this clover dries up, then that's usually the end of our spring flow.
Right. Well, yeah, I'd call that our summer flow. The Dutch clover I call our summer flow.
Well, Are we in spring or summer yet? I would say
now I think we just started
we're still in March, sir, or May, sir.
last day.
I know, but
but
I was driving over here, and it was still very much light at 8:00.
It was, and I've kind of been. The good part about that is that I'm really happy that it's light at 8:00. I like the light at 8:00.
Nope, I do not need to be like it be sun not set at 8:00. The sun not set at 9:00 when it's in July.
The bad part about it being 8:00 and sunny, or the sun just setting, is that I usually stop working when I can't see anymore.
Yes,
and I'm not stopping work until 7.
This is
8
the
o'clock.
issue. Yes,
and so yeah, that's the bad part about it. Kelly's being very forgiving though. She's very helpful, and we've got a lot going on, but we're going to get into later in the podcast. I've been pretty tired. I've been burning my candle at both ends, as Mom would say.
Speaking of that, we can just move right into that topic. One thing that's been on the forefront for you is sort of we can start with a general discussion of out-yard selection. If you're a beekeeper and you're expanding, perhaps you live in a city and the city ordinance has you keeping 2 hives or 3 hives and you want some more, or the neighbor's uncle's cousin's brother wants you to come out and put some hives out on his property and you want to expand. If you were to go out and pick an out-yard selection, a second yard, an out-yard, what do you think are some requirements for the typical out-yard for a sideliner, a strong hobbyist moving to sideliner?
So, and that's an important distinction, right? Strong hobbyist to sideliner is way different than just hobbyist. If you're a hobbyist, my answer would be no. Unless somebody's paying you to put hives out on their property that's not your property, my answer is no. I've had too many people be like, yeah, that'd be really neat to have bees. And then, this is back when I was hobby beekeeping, and I thought, I could spread my bees out a little more, and that'd be nice to get like 2 different areas with honey crops. And then like a month later, they go, or 2 months later, or 6 months later, they go, hey, I don't like these bees here. And then you have to move them.
So yeah, I mean, if you're in an urban environment and somebody is down the street and wants you to put a couple hives in their yard, right? Like that's probably not a good choice for an out yard. It's probably a better choice for them. Try to encourage them to become a beekeeper and work their own 2 hives in a yard. But if you're wanting to put another 10 or 15 hives at a location, that's a dedicated drive out to that location and work those, bring your equipment with you kind of thing. I think the first thing is probably access, right? Because what you're sort of hinting at is if they're behind somebody's gate in somebody's yard and they no longer, they're going to go off out of town or whatever and they're going to lock the gate or whatever, right? So, and then the second one is if you're farm ground and you're out in the middle of Never Never Land, like if you're looking to buy property, then there's plenty of, here in the Midwest, there's plenty of parcels that are landlocked. They don't have access on a road somehow. And so those parcels will come up for sale and they'll be relatively inexpensive. Let's put it another way, really cheap. You're like, well, why are they really cheap? Well, you start looking at it and you turn out access to that is a real issue. And nobody wants to like hike in trying to carry, extra woodenware, supers, and then at even worse, you got to go if you can hike in the supers when they're empty. You're not going to hike out supers when they're weighing 60, 70 pounds each.
No, even if you're using, say, a little dolly or something.
Oh, yeah, I got a wheelbarrow, yeah.
A dolly or wheelbarrows, it still sucks.
Across the yard is enough for me.
Yeah, it still sucks. Even mine. Mine is across the road, kind of across the yard. It's a ways out there. I still drive the pickup truck out there and throw it in the back of the pickup truck because it's too much work. It's heavy. Save your back, make things easier.
So access is number one. Can you literally drive up next to the hives where you want to set hives? And if the answer is yes, that's a good start.
That is an excellent start. The surrounding area matters. It's not something people give a lot of thought to, but it does matter. If you're doing onesie twosie hives, you can have it wherever.
Probably wherever. Rooftops. Yeah.
Yeah.
or urban areas on rooftops. I know Chicago's got a ton of rooftop hives and stuff like that. But again, in terms of if you're more suburban or if you're out in rural, it turns out you can run into some issues associated with zoning ordinances. In terms of even if you're zoned agriculture, and you would think, hey, I could put whatever I want on my agricultural land in terms of livestock. Remember, bees are supposed to be considered to be livestock. There are some places, especially around us, where you're not allowed to have chickens on your agricultural property within the city limits. You're not allowed to have. They still have agricultural. Well, number one, they still have agricultural property within their city limit, and so then they've got ordinances. And if you read the ordinance, it says, no bees, no chickens, even though you're zoned agricultural. So just because the lot's zoned agricultural is not going to be a free pass for you to move in and put some goats or some bees or whatever on it.
Yeah.
So you got to pay attention to that too.
And if you're putting, say that you're putting 10 or 20 hives on a property, the size of the property is relatively important. An acre, 2 acres for 10 hives isn't that big of a deal.
You got to remember, they're not using that specific property for forage, right? Like people would think, well, I need to put my one hive next to my vegetable garden because I need my vegetable garden to be pollinated. Well, sure, your garden will get pollinated, but they're not using only the stuff that's within 100 yards radius, right? They're foraging 2 miles.
Yeah, and in that property also, it's important for the amount of light it gets. I've been watching. So I have a hive right here out my back window, and I watch it to see when they wake up. And if it's not sunny on them, they are not interested in being out there and awake. So my other hives will wake up before my one in shade. Now, the one in the shade still works about the same amount of time late into the day. The other things that you'll see is small hive beetle do much better in shaded areas than in non-shaded areas. Small hive beetles are a pest.
I've had the same experience where I've noticed that hives that are in a predominantly shaded area do seem to have higher counts of small hive beetles. So,
and I think that you can overcome, personally, I believe that you can overcome that by using small hive beetle traps. So I have very few small hive beetle traps. I have very few small hive beetles. I have very few small hive beetle traps on my sunny yards. For my ones that are shaded more, you have to have a trap on. And I saw a couple traps. I usually have the throwaway ones. You fill them with oil. They sit flush right on top of the frames, and you toss them when they get full. Because basically what happens is that for the people that don't know, the bees will corral the small hive beetles into locations, and
they'll chase them. Yeah,
they'll chase them. They'll corral them. It's very heartbreaking when they chase them up to the lid, and you pull the lid off, and all the hive beetles go scattering. Up here in the Midwest, not as big of a deal as down south, where I've seen just thousands of them in hives down there. But up here, they're not as big of a deal. But if you do give them these small hive beetle traps, you fill them with a little bit of oil. Vegetable oil is what I use. They'll chase them in. The small hive beetles can't swim in vegetable oil, and it just drowns them. So those are really useful. There's reusable versions. One that you can add like apple cider vinegar to.
Yeah, it's got like a little center vial area that you can put a. Claim it's supposed to be like a bait, right? Like something that's going to attract them, as opposed to just having the bees sort of corral them, chase them over to that location for them to jump in there and escape being chased. Those are the ones I have. I don't know that I've ever put the bait in the center. I've just put some oil on the sides, and
I've put bait in the center, and the ones that I bait, strangely enough, have more hive beetles in them. But I'm wondering if I'm baiting hive beetles out from other hives and bringing them into that hive because it smells.
Well, I mean, catching hive beetles is
vinegary.
catching hive beetles.
Yeah, stressing the hive out though. But I guess it lowers stress on the other ones.
Yeah, so probably an open, sunny area on your property. I know you mentioned a water source, but I think if you're within a mile of a water source, you're probably fine, as opposed to having something directly on the property. There's, again, if you're rural, there's probably runoff areas on ditches and things for field runoffs, areas that'll stay wet that they can pull a water source off.
And again, in the Midwest, water sources tend not to be a huge issue for us. I could see Arizona. that area
Yep,
being
out west.
huge,
Yep.
yeah, out west. If water's an issue for your area that you're in, then a water source should be on your peripheral. If it's not, then don't worry about it. Unless, of course, you're urban and there's a swimming pool.
Yep.
And then you got to make sure that the neighbors are okay with the bees drinking from the swimming pool, because they will actively seek out swimming pools to drink at.
Yep. I had an above ground pool on my other property, and you'd be in there splashing around, and you get a layer of water up on top of the top rail that goes around the above ground pool, and it would be loaded with like 100 honeybees.
Yeah.
Just working that little shallow, millimeter deep film of water that was on top of that aluminum rail.
What I usually see is them working like a leaky pump, like a leaky connection at a pump that's in there, and they'll just sit at that leaky connection drinking. So we did cover location, we covered water, we covered sunlight. Is the number of flowers around something that you go, that you sit and look at?
Probably not. I mean, if I have an opportunity to set hives, if I have two different farmers that are offering me locations to set hives, one has access to some low-lying ground, and one is in the middle of, like 3,000 acres of tillable row crop farm, I'm going to pick something that's closer to the low-lying area, and that's just because that all those tillable acres, with the way that farmers run waterways these days, a lot of the pollinator habitat that used to exist in waterways has all been sprayed down and is kept mowed like lawn almost. So if I have the opportunity to pick a lowland area that's going to have more natural flowers and water source and blooming plants more year round, I'll certainly pick that location over just a bunch of row crops.
Yeah, I can't agree with that more. I usually actually will look at a Google map of the area, and just because you can draw distances, and I can draw a 3-mile radius, 3-mile line, and I can go, okay, or you can draw a 6-mile line. You can have an idea of what that radius is going to be. So you can see, is it forested? Forest still produce, timber still produces a great deal of honey. But you can take a look. Is it timber? Is it low-lying? Is it nice grasslands? Is it CRP? Right? What's going on around you? And pay attention to that.
It was kind of a pointed discussion for the podcast this week, because turns out you were in the market for another outyard, and while the property that you were looking at probably comes up short on a lot of those points, it also happens to be geographically located. Ideally, I wouldn't say close, but it's
a 10-minute drive away.
It's not a half hour out into the country.
Yeah.
Is the other way to say it.
Yeah, it's 10 minutes away. It was not a huge number of acres, so it was something that wasn't going to be overwhelming for my family to look at it and go, are you going to be able to manage this? Which is something that we considered.
It's wooded property. It's hilly. It's on a hillside, and the previous owner just recently had it logged, so it didn't have great access previously, but I guess in the logging portion has developed some access that allows you to get onto it a lot better. So that fixes your access issue that you would have probably struggled with just being a regular.
It had a gate before and like a road path down to a old farm building that needs some help. And now it's got paths through it. It's about 8 acres. And it's got some really neat parts to it. Although it is somewhat hilly, it's got some nice flat areas. So that's the other thing we didn't even talk about. We need some flat areas to put hives. Like putting a hive on a hill, you can do it. I believe you have a student that did it.
I have experience with trying to help a beginner with setting hives on a hillside, and the initial setup of the stand was not as explained, and it resulted in a hive going tumbling down the hill.
Not so robust.
And
and I could not imagine bees being more angry than tumbling after you've tumbled them down the hill. And that would be an unpleasant experience for everybody. And About 150 feet.
So I got the call on that one to both come out and try to deal with the upside down hive that was now 15 feet down the hill, and also rework the stands to make them stable on a hillside.
What do you do first there? Are you stabilizing the stands? Are you
because
are you fixing the hive?
No, because the hive's upside down. The hive's been upside down for hours, right?
Oh,
like me.
I thought it was like you immediately get a call and you were out there with like in 10 minutes.
Oh no, it's a half-hour drive, and
okay.
right, like that the fact that they're there, it doesn't change. It's I need someplace when I set them back up.
Yeah,
I need to ensure that they're going to be good when I set them back up. And as soon as I went to adjust the bottom board on the stand and look at the fallen over collection of cinder blocks and pieces of material that were used to shim up the ends to make it level, I made the decision that we need to get a shovel out and reevaluate how we were stacking cinder blocks and how we were going to level things up.
Leveling the hive is relatively important. Location of the hive on a flat area is what I would always suggest if it's possible. If it's not, I'd probably go through and dig a little flat retained area in there with maybe some blocks in the back to keep the hillside from sliding in on it afterwards. But remember, you're working your hives from behind too, so you got to give spots for you to walk through. I know that on some of mine, the initial ones I put up, I expected them all to face one way on the fence, and so you can only get behind them one way.
Yeah.
And then my second set, I pushed them out further in the yard so I could work on either side.
Yeah, well, also an affinity to facing south. So your north-lined hives, you pulled away from the fence because you wanted the entrance is facing south and still wanted to work them not standing in front of the entrance. So
right,
there's some distance there, and that same goes for if you're sitting on a tree line or something, pull them out far enough so they get some sun and not just shaded all the time in the tree line for the other reasons.
Shade around noon on a hive works just fine.
Early eastern sun and then western shade is always worked well because that avoids sort of the hot heat of the day. I guess the other thing on the topic for today, let's talk briefly about partnerships. Partnerships that may show up because you're a beekeeper. Once you've been beekeeping for a while, you might get approached by various groups that want you to partner with them to do various things. These could be things like honey tastings. Restaurant reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I hear you're a beekeeper. Honey tastings are all the rage. Can you supply me with honeys for that?" Or all of these discussions could be brought to you, or as a beekeeper looking to expand from the hobbyist, you could reach out to these various organizations to partner with them, right? So honey tastings, or perhaps a commercial kitchen to make some hot honey or otherwise blended honeys. It could be if you have a destination location that wants to have bees on it, and so managed hives on a destination location that might be like a resort of some sort, and one of their attractions are going to be hives on the property, and they want to work with a local beekeeper to ensure that they have hives on the property as part of their marketing materials.
Yeah, or tours. The
tours,
one that I worked with for a while before they closed their doors had tours. Their idea was to have tours for hives, and that never came to be. However, Riverview at the apiary, we do tours, and we do honey tastings. So that's something else to keep in mind. It kind of dovetails with the destinations. Is if you can do those things, you want to offer those things, then by all means, I'll offer those things.
So there's some aspect of that that's the beekeeping part, right? Like you're going to need to supply honey, or you're going to need to supply bees and do beekeeping things. But the other half of it is, at the end of the day, it's sort of a business relationship, and just as much business acumen that's going to determine whether or not that venture succeeds or fails more than it is your ability to beekeep. So you need to keep that in mind. Just because you have an opportunity to partner with a various group to provide that wants to do something with a beekeeper, are you comfortable with business decisions, business making? If that's not something you've done and all you've done is done the beekeeping portion of it, there can be some real challenges there.
Yeah, it can be intimidating. A lot of people, usually, in my experience, people undervalue the knowledge that you have and the knowledge that you can bring, or at least the knowledge that you, especially you and I, right? Especially our cutouts, we've talked about it over and over about Steve and I do cutouts, and I always charge people too little. And Steve usually will stand there about in the middle of the cutout and go, "How much are we charging for this one?" As we're dripped in sweat and 30 feet up in the air.
It's always the you think you could. They don't want to pay the. You always at some point you're having a discussion and you're like, man, it just seems like a lot of money to charge for what you know you're going to do because you know how to do it. But the reality is, to them, it's just the same as like a person who doesn't do plumbing or electrical work on their house, right? And you got to call the plumber or electrician. It's a specialized skill with specialized tools, and therefore the rates to have that service performed are going to be on par with those other trades.
Well, and what I've found helpful for me, I've gotten better at this year, so I've had some talks with people that do it better than me, or do it being the pricing. The things that I found is if I break the pricing down into my hourly rate, that helps me with honey pricing. It helps me with selling our bees pricing. It helps with the tours that I do. And even this podcast, right? The podcast has we pay in order for it to be listed on Libsyn and hosted on Libsyn and spread out. So we have to go sit down and you have to look at, am I willing to do this for this amount of money?
Wait, we're getting paid for this?
Yeah, we're not.
This is news to me, man. Like I haven't gotten any checks yet.
No checks yet. But are you willing to do this for the time that it takes? And that's a decision. It kind of, I think beekeeping has a lot to offer everybody just in general life, right? There's lessons to be learned in beekeeping that can be applied across the board to how people live. This is one of the lessons is, are you willing to spend the time, and how much are you willing to get paid for that time that you spend?
So the reason why I sort of bring this up this week is you have been approached by the USDA. We have a USDA research facility here in Peoria, and they have reached out to the beekeeping community here locally for some assistance, as there have been some new researchers that have moved in, and they're tasked with studying honeybee-related issues.
And their tie into agriculture, I think is why the thought of moving them out here was we're a huge agricultural area. They're looking specifically at pests. So the first pest, actually, it was from a cutout, was some nasty comb that I had left out, and it was near my hives. It was on the riverside near my hives, and it grew some real nasty looking, gross looking small hive beetles as they chewed up the wax there. They happened to have stopped by the local bee organization, or HOIBA, and they asked for small hive beetle samples. And I just was like, oh, hey, I'll move these to a little plastic container. Hopefully they'll survive. I don't really care that much because they're small hive beetles, so if they die, then too bad. And they still have those small hive beetles, which happen to be super small hive beetles that are resistant to
permethrin?
No, pyrethrids. Something along those lines. Anyway, they're hard to kill.
It turns out the stuff they were hoping that they could use,
Pyrethrids.
Yeah. To work with to develop a treatment against small hive beetles, they were immune to. And I'm like, well, isn't that the whole point of research, is you find out 500 ways that don't work and one way that does? So congratulations, you're doing research.
I guess it's pyrethroids.
Pyrethroids?
Pyrethroids. Synthetic chemical insecticides, specific to insects. So they're resistant to it.
It's an interesting conversation to have when an entomologist for a living comes to you as the beekeeper and says, "Can you supply me with small hive beetles?" And you're like, you realize that as a beekeeper, I spend my time trying to get rid of small hive beetles.
I can tell you how they crunch. They make a nice little crunchy noise.
And so then they come back some weeks, some months, some time passes. Hey, can you get us varroa mites? And you're like, I suppose. But then as a beekeeper, I have access to varroa mites. Some of us may not want to have access to varroa mites, but the reality is we have access to varroa mites. But the access to varroa mites, when they're floating around dead at the bottom of your easy mite check, is not the kind of access to varroa mites that the guy researching how to kill varroa mites, like they're already dead at that point. That didn't do that guy any good. So then he comes to you and he's like, "Hey, how can you get me live varroa mites?" And you're like,
And on a weekly basis or every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And by the way, what impact does that have on the hive? And
so you're like, it's one of those weird, when I was talking about partnerships before, you're like, hey, my job is to supply honey to the guy who makes the hot honey, and it just needs to get me the honey, or the mead making guy, and I just need to get him some honey, right? Like, they don't care about the rest of the beekeeping part of that. They just want their product. And it's interesting from the researcher, right? Like, I feel like they have the same approach where if you're in research and you want to do research on mice or rats or something, you just go to the mouse supplier or the rat supplier, and they supply you with, I want 20 rats a month or whatever the time frame is. They show up, they're delivered. You have your things that you can experiment on, and you know nothing about raising, growing, life cycles of that product. It's just delivered to you. So I'm sure the researcher at the lab is like, oh, hey, where do varroa mites come from? Honeybees. Let's go talk to the guy who raises the honeybees, because he'll be able to get us that. And then, like, they'll just show up at our door in a box that we can then do research on. And I'm like,
So to be fair, they realize there's more to it than that. However, it's really interesting this ties back into our location, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to raise mites, so I need to separate from my apiary.
I don't want to do that in my
apiary.
And the requests don't stop there, right? Like, mites and small hive beetles, that's a pretty nominal request. I have access to those, sometimes more than others. But then what happens when they like, hey, can you get me EFB to study European foul brood? And I'm like, I have had a European foul brood, and I'm like, I don't know that I have any hives that have it right now. And I'm like, even if I had a hive that had it right now, what do you do then? Like, you try to separate that and go, here's some brood that's dying from European foul brood, so you can study it. And
so my thought is
you got to try to maintain that hive so that they have a sample to continue to study for weeks.
I'm going to give you it, and you're going to probably grow it, right? My guess is that you grow it. You get a little ether, what are those called? The gel dishes,
yeah,
and agar dishes, and grow it off there, because that hive is not sticking around. To me, I have no means to contain that EFB.
Yeah, like,
in that
there's
hive.
some serious biosecurity concerns there.
Yeah,
where, like, our entire reason for having Illinois bee inspectors is to try to track and contain things like European foul brood and especially American foul brood.
Which we actually, so that should be in the news section. Did you hear that we had AFB?
No.
In Illinois?
No.
Will County.
Really?
Had an outbreak of AFB. So those of you who are listening, I know that some of you already know, or most of you already know. I posted it to the HYBA and the SIBA Facebook groups. But there was an outbreak of AFB in Will County, and the guy sold the bee. He's in the yard, sold those bees throughout Illinois.
Oof.
So they're trying to track them down.
And
find it.
So when people are like, hey, what are your Illinois inspectors doing, and why do they get real persnickety if you're moving comb with brood in it across county lines? It's for this exact reason.
Right. Which is why people have asked me recently, hey, can I always people have asked, hey, they buy stuff, they buy nukes from us. I will not sell a nuke that hasn't been inspected, that hasn't been approved to be sold. Doesn't happen. Won't leave my yard. Right now I've got a bunch of nukes in my yard. The inspector is a week out. I'm a little annoyed at the amount of time it's going to take her to get there. But I'm not interested in being the guy that hey, I sold 30 nukes and they had AFB and good luck.
AFB, I would think we're good enough to identify that. EFB is probably the more difficult one if it's just because it's so hard to differentiate between that and parasitic mite syndrome, PMS. So, and having a small nuke that's got a varroa mite outbreak, we're starting to get into the later in year where have had enough brood cycles where we could, if you had a hive that was particularly problematic for mites, you could start to see some,
or had a lot of drone brood.
Yeah. And so they come to you, would you supply us with these things as the beekeeper? And all of a sudden you've got a lot of interesting questions about what are the actual logistics for how you supply that as the beekeeper. And
cost for it, right? How much do I do it, and what's the setup?
And I'm sure some of the people out there that are like, I would never intentionally maintain a hive that has some sort of high mite level for the express purpose of supplying mites.
Well,
for a research facility.
And I don't think that those people that would never maintain mites for a research facility, that Venn diagram with a circle, right? People that would not do it, and then the people that have mites in their hive anyway.
Yeah,
right? I'm not sure that those are totally not overlapping.
but no,
or partially overlapping.
So my point is, if you were to do a mite check and see that you had high mite levels, your natural reaction as a beekeeper is to put a treatment on of some sort, whatever that is. We're not here to debate that.
Replace the queen, whatever. However you want to do it.
But the point is, your goal is to not have that. Whereas if you're being paid to supply researchers with varroa mites, all of a sudden that sounds like something that you're happy to try to maintain as long as possible.
Well, and
is that a moral and ethical dilemma?
So that is something that I've actually spent a lot of time looking into and thinking about. Right? How much is the life of that colony worth? The other thing that I think is weird is that this will be a natural pressure for bees that are resistant to varroa to be in that yard. Yeah. Right? Because the ones that survive yearly with minimal treatments are going to be the ones that I'm going to watch it real
awful
close.
Lot like the arguments that people make for treatment-free beekeeping.
It is. That's not exactly what I plan to do, but it may be fallout.
But, at the same time, if this the other side of this coin is, what if you're the guy who's supplying the varroa mites needed that leads to that facility discovering that we can now effectively treat them with some new
fungus outbreak that happens to kill
them, or some other sort of process that we haven't currently, come across, and that leads to a revolution in being able to effectively treat mites that maybe carries over to trophy mites too, right? Like,
I'd still be a footnote in the annals of history, I'm sure, but
But at the same time, I feel like there's only a handful of people that are probably out there actively trying to supply researchers with the raw materials they need to do basic research.
It's even more than that. It's actively supplying, but you're also a guide, like a person that studies it. We've both worked within industries that you've been studying it and then seen it applied.
Yeah.
And the difference is not insignificant, right? There is the applied, like a service engineer out in the field, compared to a design engineer behind a desk.
Yeah. The number of times the design engineer in the desk has no idea how the piece of equipment gets used in the field is entirely an everyday occurrence.
And I think that's going to be part of my role again. No longer engines, but now with bees. But I think it'll be a role in this. The other thing that
because you got to remember, just because you're a PhD entomologist does not mean you had any specialty in honeybees. I mean, they're insects, but you may have spent your entire time in flies or some other, insect problem that has been affecting livestock or some other part of the agriculture industry. Could have been some, mite or weevil or something for wheat or rice or who knows what, right? Like
corn, soybean,
some sort of vole for corn or something. Who knows? The point is, there are plenty of entomologists that spend their entire time studying, being PhD entomologists, and know virtually nothing about honeybees because, it turns out they're not beekeepers.
Well, I know plenty of beekeepers that don't know a whole lot about honeybees either, right? So they're not.
Luke, we call those beginners.
It's all
we
right.
would hope that
there's actually not a lot of shade there. Like it sounded like there's a lot of shade there being thrown, but there's not. If you are successful and you don't know very much, like your bees are surviving in spite of you, not because of you. Okay, good for you. Like it's
sort of a philosophical debate that we've had a couple of times recently in terms of what does it take for you to be a beekeeper? What is the title of you're a beekeeper? Does that mean? And having hives and working hives, I think is probably the low bar, right?
Yeah, that's the lowest bar. Because I was going to say not being afraid of your bees, but no, I know plenty of beekeepers are afraid of their bees.
What we would call afraid of their bees.
Yeah.
Now, is that 92-year-old grandma in the garden afraid of the bees?
Oh, absolutely.
No, that's not the same afraid of the bees.
No, that's a different level of fear. Right. This is. I'm just worried about getting stung. The whole time I'm in the hive, I'm thinking about getting stung, not what's going on in the hive. That to me, that's as a beekeeper
and
that's
really
afraid of their bees.
It's a whole nother level when you're 30 feet off the ground and you got your hands over your head with the honey raining on you, and the bee lands on your veil, pressed up against your face, and it stings you right in lip.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it because your hands are full and you're 30 feet up. You don't have the opportunity to just run away.
You'd think that being on the ground, that would be better, but all you hear is yelling 30 feet up, and you're like, is he going to make it?
Let's throw back to a couple episodes ago when we were talking about our cutout. In the news, this is our segment where we try to bring something topical from the world of beekeeping that is new in the news. This week's topic is something that's, I guess, been floating around, but I guess they've had a reconfirmation of this. Another study that has confirmed that there are beneficial portions of bee venom, specifically melatonin, that is contained in bee venom that is used for effective treatment in specifically breast cancer currently, but also they're looking at having it be beneficial for various other kinds of cancer, skin cancer, cervical cancer, pancreatic cancer. So there's quite a few fairly ugly cancers out there where bee venom might be one of the additional treatments that is optionally available to help treat those cancers. Obviously, there's some challenges there with just taking raw bee venom and injecting it into you. There are not insignificant number of people that are allergic to bee venom, so that's going to be a problem for those people.
Well, it's about 3% of the population is allergic. But the dose is a matter. The dose is an issue. Getting it to the location is an issue.
Yep.
That's the main issue with cancer. Is like getting the dose, the medicine
specifically to
that location.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see.
But it's kind of cool that, again, nature's venoms out there. I guess there's been some other spider venoms and weird cone snail venoms and stuff that are out there on the edge of research for providing some good ways to counter our ailments and diseases and cancers and whatnot. So this seems to be the latest in that line.
Well, if I have cancer in my fingertips today, I can tell you that
it's not going to be there.
It's not there anymore.
It's going to be interesting as we get the arthritis in the hands. If we ever get the arthritis in the hands, how?
Well, my family has a long history of hand arthritis. In fact,
Yeah.
you can see, right, my index fingers
Yeah.
already have a slight little tweak to them.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see long term how that works out.
I told you that story, right? One of the very first beekeeping experiences I had probably been beekeeping it was my first summer, probably less than 6 months. And the old guy comes up to buy eggs. He says, I was in my beekeeping suit. He says, I see you're a beekeeper. He's like, yeah. He's like, man, I got arthritis in this hand. He says, do you suppose you can get somebody to sting me? I'm like, yeah, we could probably arrange that. So I go over to the hive and pull a frame out and snatch a girl off of her, and I'm holding it. Her bottom's all wiggling around. I go over and smash it on his hand, and sure enough, she stings him right in the knuckle. He's like, oh, that'll be so good tomorrow.
Huh.
Like, there you go, man.
Just tell him to go stick his hand in the hive. How many stings do you want? 10?
We also have the honeybee hotline where you can call in. Well, you're not really call in. This is not exactly a live show, but you can leave us questions. We collect questions from various locations. A lot of people that we have contact with will ask us various questions at this time of year. There seems to be no end to the number of questions. So we pick out a couple of those that we feel might be interesting to the listeners out there. On the top of the list, Luke, how long do you go between bee checks this time of year?
1 week. The most I'll go is 2.
And what happens if it would be longer than that?
They'll probably swarm. They might swarm. They might run out of space. Your ideal time, in my opinion, this time of year is about 1 week, because you can add your supers in a timely manner and get a good harvest. You are going to have swarms even at 1 week. You'll still have bees that swarm because you didn't give them enough space or you read something wrong.
What if you're the commercial guy and you're like, it's time to put supers on, and so he's got his double deep of overwintered hive, and like 1st of May, he went out and he set 2 deep supers on, 2 deep, 10 frame deeps on top. Those are going to be his honey supers. He runs all deeps. He just throws a bunch of extra equipment on top and walks away. I'll see you in July.
Yeah, that's a different. So commercial beekeeping is a different animal. Commercial beekeeping, they still go through it, I think, every 2 weeks. The ones that I've seen. Now, they changed I have a spreadsheet of all of my hives, and I go through all my hives with notes.
Yeah.
The ones that I've seen have a red, green.
They have some way to sort of indicate what's going on in the hive from the outside of the hive.
Yeah, so it's an indicator, and so if it's red twice in a row, they do stuff like we squish the queen and we move on. So,
but that's more to do with hive health and hive veracity in terms of how much brood we have available, how many flyers we've got, things like that. But I mean, I guess that's sort of at the root of what we're doing, what we're checking for an inspection,
right? So that's what I'm checking for an inspection is eggs.
What about
how many frames and brood?
What if you have a horizontal and that movable divider board was shoved all the way over to the left? We're moving left to right.
Right.
And it was like 10 frames from the left coming out of winter, and we just moved it all the way to the right. We give you all the frames. You can fill it up as much as you want. I'll be back in July.
It tends to be an issue of what I've seen in my hives. That's when you have people. So there's people that do it. There's people that I throw 3 supers on or 4 supers on.
I thought that was the whole point of a horizontal was they have all the space and they can do their thing, and I don't have to. I don't have to deal with heavy supers on top.
No, you have to limit their space still. That's what that following board's for. So if you give them too much space, just like in a Langstroth, if you give them too much space, they can be overrun by small hive beetle. They can be overrun by wax moth. They have a fight that they have to win against Mother Nature, and that is an issue.
It is the balancing act of trying to manage the available hive space and try to give them enough hive space that it's not too much at the start, but they're not backfilling the brood nest with honey, and then
which I did have one that backfilled. Actually,
dude, I got
backfilled the brood nest.
Same thing here, dude.
And if they do, actually, that's a good question. It wasn't a question that was asked, but a good answer is, what do you do when they start backfilling and they want to fill up the brood space for your deeps with honey?
I'd pull 3 frames from 3 hives and stack them in one deep on top of one of the hives and put new frames in and collect it all as a deep super, and cuss yourself for having to hoist around 110 pounds deep super of honey. But you'll have a lot of honey out of it, but it's going to be logistics to move it around.
I usually will pull it and extract it. I'll pull it and extract it. I'll give them 3 new frames right in the middle.
Yeah.
And the ones that are honey bound that are I'll put it on
is
another hive.
If they're not, like, if it's not capped yet, right? But it's all full of nectar.
Oh.
Trying to collect it together so that I have it all together in one location so that I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah. That's another question that I was asked by one of my workers. And that's a good question to ask. So let's say that can you harvest uncapped honey?
Sure. In fact, one of the major beekeepers that gets a lot of attention in the beekeeping community, his specific way that he takes honey is to take it while it's still uncapped, load it all into a shipping container he's specially modified while it's still uncapped, and with box fans and dehumidifiers, he dries down the uncapped honey.
Yeah, so the box fans below are set at the bottom, and it blows up through the frames.
Top.
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, and blows up through the frames, and that's how he cures it.
Do I think
also do, but as a hobbyist, the shake method is really what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So you can hold a frame you pull a frame that's full of uncapped honey or partially capped honey. You can do a shake method where you snap your wrists. I don't know how to explain it better than you're shaking it hard.
So this is also not vertically. If you're going to turn it sideways as you're to inspect the cells and look for eggs, and the stuff on the backside starts dripping out, and you haven't done anything, it's still too wet. It's still too nectary.
Yep. I go, and if I shake it hard, and it's hard enough to dislodge bees if they're attached to it.
Yeah.
And I can shake it that hard horizontally towards the hive. If nectar falls out, I put it back in. If it doesn't fall out, then I have found that will be below 18% water content, which is stable water content for honey.
So, and there might be 2 reasons why that's not capped. One, the cell's not full, so they won't cap it, even if it's already at 18% or below. If it's not full, they won't cap it. And then 2, the other reason why it's not capped is they don't think it's dry enough yet. So just because
they haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, or they haven't gotten around to it. Just because it's not capped does not mean it's not suitable honey to take.
Yeah. So this year mine was 16%, and I would say about 50% of my frames were, half of my frame volume was uncapped.
I do the thing where, like on a frame, they might start capping from the top and working their way down, and if that frame is like half capped all the way down, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I still make everyone do the
shake.
I call it a shake test, or a snap test is what I usually call it. And if their snap test passes, then I'll still double check it because I'm a control freak. But otherwise, yeah, I'll pull it.
I had one of those sort of questions from the very early beginners or people who are interested in beekeeping because they want to know, how long does it take an existing colony of bees to make a new colony of bees?
See, and this is a fascinating question. This is my family member, my niece, wrote me and asked me this question. And realistically, in my opinion, it's 28 days. And that's a very specific number. 28 days is roughly the amount of time it takes for a queen to hatch and come back and be mated and lay eggs. That's now, it could be much less than that. That's 2 successful colonies. That's not just one. So what I'm getting at is what we like to call queen bee math. And it's how many days does it take for a queen to hatch, how many days from egg to hatching, and all this other stuff. Realistically, a colony can swarm before a queen is hatched.
Yep.
And
so the question becomes, what's your definition of a colony?
You're right. And so for me, you can have a colony that it doesn't have a queen in it. It's not they call it a queen right colony. Is it not queen right? And
so depending on how you would define your colony, the time frame there would vary a little bit, because you're going to start with a queen right colony that starts making queen cells, and then at some point, probably before the new queen cells hatch,
usually after they're capped.
After they're capped, the existing queen and about half your flyers will leave.
Yeah, half to 2/3 was that's new information. The 2/3 I always thought it was like half or less. It's half or more, up to 2/3.
Because of all the capped brood that's left behind.
Right.
They understand that, hey, we're going to have a bunch of everybody's going to be hatching out, so your population's not going to suffer. So they go off, they fly off, they find a new home. They move in day one. As soon as they move into a box, is that a new colony, or do they have to have drawn comb for them to lay in?
I found it takes about 2 days for them to have drawn comb enough to lay in.
Yep.
And it does not have to be totally drawn for her to lay in it. As soon as it starts, she's like, good enough. We're laying eggs. And they'll continue to draw around that because it takes
9 days until that egg needs to be capped.
Yeah.
So I got 9 days to fill out the rest of that comb.
So to me, as soon as she starts laying eggs, that's a colony.
So we got that, and then the
back in the home colony.
Colony for the existing queen to hatch out, say 2 or 3 days, and then
it's 12 days for her to be laying.
But and then she's going to go mating flights and come back, and then so depending on how you initially call the original colony to the new one, is somewhere between 3 or 4 days to 28 days.
And the weird thing is that we didn't even talk about virgin queen swarming, which is also a thing.
It is,
and we're seeing it this year. Unusual number of swarms this year, and I'm seeing it this year. And that
I was always in the impression that was particularly large colonies that have a large number of flyers. They'll pick that half number and leave with the existing queen. Your first, they may have 15 queen cells, and then that first one hatches, and they're like, "Hey, there's plenty of people around. Let's just go ahead and leave." And
so there'll be a couple. They'll hang out for a little while. They'll throw off little tiny. Like basically, they take another half of the left, and then and you can do it 2 or 3 times.
Yep, off a big hive for sure.
Right, and so you usually get like football size swarms when you see that. And it takes a while for her to start laying. Many people grab those swarms and they're like, "Hey, I got a swarm, but I missed the queen."
Yeah,
he didn't miss the queen. She wasn't mated. She's still working on that.
And of course, the question of the long ongoing topic that you love to talk about: what about ants in my colony? What about ants in my hive?
Ants in my hive. I hate them. I really dislike it.
This goes back to very first Luke.
Yeah.
Beginner beekeeper. What do I do about my ants, Steve?
Yeah, because this is still why I don't run a lot of inner covers, because bees can't get
no problems
in
with
between
ants.
the lid and the inner covers, and I get these little sugar ant infestations.
I always have.
If you take a blowtorch to them, they pop. They sound like little tiny, like popping corn. I burn them out of my hives.
Top entrances so that they get up through the center, the inner cover, and out the top, because my inner covers always have that 3/8, the 1/4 inch gap between the lid and the top, because I run inner covers that don't have flat sides. Yep. And if I'm running an inner cover with a flat side, I'll run one of my peak covers on top of that so they can get on top of it. So I don't have these problems. I'll have, if you're running styrofoams, styrofoam hives, or if you're running styrofoam insulation hoops around the outside, you'll have some sugar ants move into those.
Those don't bother me. My polystyrene, I tend not to have a lot of ants on there. I always get them underneath the inner covers, between the inner cover and the lid, and then I'll burn.
I can't remember the last time I've seen.
Man, I know if I go to one of my hives out, actually just past you, out near Wildlife Prairie Park, I know if I pull that lid, it has got a colony of. Usually, I pull the lid and I light my blowtorch, and then I just plug the middle of it, and then the ants. Because the other thing, the bees hate it too, and it pisses the bees off. Because the bees can bite the ants,
Yeah,
and they're seen as invaders. So you pop this lid, the ants go scurrying. They try to go down in the middle of the cover, grabbing eggs. And so then the bees start biting them because you got ants in the hive, and the bees are pissed at you.
so this is, to be clear, this is all Central Illinois beekeeping.
Yeah.
This is all Central Midwest beekeeping.
It has no real
This is
impact on
not. This is not fire ants that they deal with in the South that are a real headache.
No, these are just little like sugar ants.
And
they realistically probably
every now and then you'll have some big black carpenter ants.
Yeah.
And I don't, again, not an issue for the hive. A good healthy colony is not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And
these sugar ants actually probably don't do that much damage to the colony. They just make me mad. Like I have
trying to ant proof your stands. I know somebody sitting at the other end of the table from me has went through that as a new beginner, and it was just, I laughed. I'm like, hey man, if you want to try it, go for it. Otherwise, just don't worry about it. Just
in the Yucatan, they do have to ant proof them. They do basically set the feet in
little pools of
motor oil, and that'll do it until the ants they'll make bridges across it.
But again,
dead ants.
We're talking about Midwest beekeeping here, man.
I know. So ants, they're not that big of a deal. You can blowtorch them; they'll largely die. The bees largely can take care of them. Also, in that same vein, the praying mantises that hang out in your hive, that at least on my hives, I get praying mantises every year that try to scare
dragonflies.
Try to scare you off. Dragonflies are more of a pain in the butt. Dragonflies will make a dent in my requeening. Dragonflies are an issue, but I can't do anything about them, and they're like the apex insect predator of the world.
But I really feel like you have them because your apiary is literally within sight of the river, where mine is in a much more rural. It's got some woods, it's got some tillable, it's got some houses, neighborhoods, right? Like I'm not by the river, so I have seen like only a handful of dragonflies, and half of that has to do with just the other sort of natural prairie that I run in the yard.
Yeah. Well, and I've got jumping spiders. I got a lot of jumping spiders.
Oh, jumper spiders, yeah.
They don't bother me at all.
I always love to see them. I'm like, I like it, but
they're cute little dudes.
Just little cute little fuzzy guys.
Yeah. No, I've seen them. I've actually seen them grab honeybees.
Yeah.
And
I'm like, bud, you can have one.
You can, yeah. Usually it's the guards. So like the guard comes out, and then the jumping, and I'm like, oh, you don't want to pick that fight, and then it's too late.
Droning on, this is the segment where we talk about what we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. For me, I'm going to be taking some honey. I think I talked about that at the start of the podcast. We're coming into peak summertime temperatures. 80s and sunny, all the honey drying, maybe the Dutch clover still got to stay on top of. Am I requeening correctly? Putting on supers, moving supers around.
I've got two big things coming up. I've been asked to go to, last year I was asked. I need to recheck them. I've been asked to go to a queen rearing special seminar.
Oh, you going to that?
Indiana.
Yeah.
So that's next week, and then the week after that is the Illinois State summertime Illinois State Beekeeping Association meeting for the year.
Oh, is it?
And I'm talking at that.
Oh, are you?
I am. I've been asked to I was asked to speak twice at it, so I'll be doing a presentation on sidelining. That'll kind of copy what we talked about today. So it's nice that we talked about it. Steve had no idea that we did. And so I'll be talking about sidelining, running a sidelining business, seeing what's involved in that. And then I'll be talking about how I keep my bees alive through winter. And that'll be an interesting talk because that is a charged topic usually in beekeeping.
And if I could tell you, if I could point at a hive and go, that one's going to live and that one's going to die.
Oh, man.
At the start of fall, man, I shouldn't be in the business I'm in. Yeah. That would be.
I have like a 90% success rate in that. It's the 10%.
Short of something that's like obvious where that clearly doesn't have the population to make it through the winter.
Yeah.
But there have been plenty of times when I thought that is a great strong hive going into winter, and I did mite treatments on it, and I got no reason to believe it's not going to fail. And next spring, it's deader than a doornail.
And that is the 10% that hurts my heart.
Yep.
When I open them and they're this massive colony that died. It's not moisture. It's usually it's a failed mite treatment because usually up here at least, or they starve. The one that really hurts my heart, I'm like, you starved. And I could have fed you. I could have put something on top, but I always get a couple of those onesies, twosies of those because I don't have 100 sugar boards that I'm putting on. Maybe I should.
Oh well, how many are insulated?
Yeah. Well, and then insulated. I was asked that question by the USDA. Like, does insulated matter? Does it not matter?
Circling back to that conversation, It turns out when you're the beekeeper, they want samples to study year round.
Yeah,
it turns out that's a challenge when it's December or January in the middle of the Midwest. If you want live samples that come out of a hive to do research on, and your hives are all buttoned down and hibernating for the winter, and they're like, yeah, but we still need product to test on. You're like, well, I happen to know some other people down south. But again, it's sort of those connections that allow you to build those business relationships.
Yeah, and to that point too, if you are a small beekeeper and you can't work directly with something like this, and you want to contribute, you should reach out to us. We did get an email. We've got an email. We got our first fan email that was like legitimately.
Do we want to say that we've been doing this for 2.5 years now? We got our first fan email. That's
directly to our email address. It
works. For everybody out there that's listening and wonders, it actually does work. We do monitor it,
and so we did get it. We get a direct email from folks that wasn't to. Usually the things I get are like calls and or texts and or like Facebook posts.
I have a sum of money and I'm from South Africa.
No. like a thank you for putting that or thank you for talking about that kind of stuff. But yeah, we got a legitimate email. So thank you for writing us. It does. We read it out loud. There was a top feeder in there that we were unfamiliar with. Some verbiage of like a top feeder.
Well, I was just curious what one they were using and was it one that we had a direct experience with, and while it's not one that either of us have direct experience with, it looks very much, it is in vain. The method that it uses to feed is very similar to ones that I have direct experience with. So,
and I like those. The main issue I have with it is the amount of nectar. As soon as they stop taking nectar, as soon as they stop taking sugar water and nectar's coming in, they leave it to ferment. It's a top feeder. So,
and then if the screening on it isn't great,
yeah, they drown.
They drown. You can drown a lot of bees real quick.
Or if you don't put the lid on and it's cattywampus, and then they can get
outside world gets not from the inside of the hive. Yeah,
right. Yeah. But again, appreciate the emails. You can email us at Beekeeping Buddies.
If you got questions or feedback, let us know.
beekeepingbuddies@gmail.com. Send us a link. We'd be happy to talk to you.
If you got any products you want us to review, we're happy to put them to test, take a look at them, talk about them on the podcast. And remember, every beekeeper needs a buddy. We hope you found one of yours right here.